how the local election will have a huge impact on a national level.
And a drawing delay. What happened to the record-breaking Powerball jackpot Monday night?
And we have David Damore about why today will be put in the history books.
Now, news that matters to you on campus and beyond. Live. You're watching Studio G.
Thank you for joining us on Studio G. My name is Mia Nakamura. Today is Election Day, and how will the weather look like for those of you standing outside of the polls? Dom, what can we expect?
Thank you, Mia. Now, this election day is looking a little bit doomier and gloomier this time of year with some overcast clouds dreading the area for this election day. And now taking a look outside, we have a high of 67 degrees with the overcast clouds, 11-mile-per-hour wind speeds. And we're going to move on over to our valley temperatures. Taking a look out there for your polling locations, 61 in North Las Vegas, 59 in Vegas. And we are going to be looking at some pretty cold temperatures for election day. Mia, back to you.
And if you don't want to walk in the rain to the polls, Lyft will be offering voters a discounted price on Election Day. Lyft is giving riders a 50% discount of up to $10 for rides to the polling sites today. The code A-Campus Takeover can be used for a $20 credit and NAACP Vote 2022 for a $25 credit. There's another code, Vote 22, also applies to bike share and scooter rides. Through Lyft Voting Access Program, they look at the address, transportation, and barriers that gives voters with inaccessible transportation to the opportunity to go out and vote.
And if you're looking for places around the valley to make your vote count, there are over 120 ballot drop-off and in-person voting locations ranging all the way from Boulder City, the Boulder City Rec Center, to the Searchlight Community Center and to Thomas O'Rourke Elementary up in Centennial Hills. While you can drop off your ballot at any of these sites, remember if you're voting by mail, your ballot must be postmarked no later than today. For questions or more information, please visit iwillvote.com/NV, or you can text the voter hotline at 775-877-VOTE.
And as we mentioned, today is November 8th, and if you do not know the importance of today, it is Election Day. The election outcome of Nevada will have national implication when it comes to the governor and the U.S. Senate race. The two races are shaping up to be one of the closest races in the country. As of this morning, Adam Laxalt has a 1.4% lead over Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, and Sheriff Joe Lombardo has a 1.9% lead over Governor Steve Sisolak. The election will be the tipping point on who controls the U.S. Congress and ultimately who sets the agenda for President Joe Biden's remaining years in office. In-person polling stations will be open until 7 p.m. today. So if you have not voted yet, go out and vote because your voice will determine our future. And how is this election affecting other states? Isabella Rosales has more.
This election is not a referendum, it's a choice. It's a choice between two very different visions of America.
In this last sprint toward the midterm elections, candidates across the country are making their closing pitch.
You cannot trust Herschel Walker to tell the truth about the basic facts of his life.
When we leave tomorrow night, we're leaving as winners.
And voters casting ballots in record numbers.
What's happening in this country is not okay, and we are all suffering.
Democrats battling to maintain control of the Senate, their majority razor thin. 35 of 100 Senate seats on the ballot. In the House, all 435 seats on the ballot. Speaker Nancy Pelosi facing an uphill battle to hold her majority.
You're going to vote for an incredible slate of true American first Republicans up and down the ballot.
Statewide, 36 governor seats up for grabs. But all eyes on crucial battleground states.
Get people to vote.
Arizona, home to contested Senate and gubernatorial races. 12 of the 13 Republican nominees for federal and state office have questioned the results of the 2020 election, according to the Washington Post. Also critical, Nevada, Georgia, and Pennsylvania.
Are you happy with where America's headed?
One of the nation's most closely watched Senate races, and where 3 presidents stumped this weekend.
Fundamental rights are on the ballot.
On Capitol Hill, I'm Isabel Rosales.
And Nevada is a crucial state in this election, and officials and candidates alike are urging people to go out and vote. And just as everyone is running to the polls today, we have hopeful individuals running to the lottery office to get lottery tickets. Now, the Powerball lottery, that ended up getting delayed last night, and that $1.8 billion jackpot was put on hold due to a delay with a lottery game with their data and their announcement. And the results are going to be announced this morning. We'll have those results for you tomorrow morning here on Studio G in the event someone does get a winning ticket in this record-breaking lottery game. And coming up after the break, we have a huge lunar event that happened last night. Here's why it's significant. And the Mirage No More, what the iconic Las Vegas hotel will be transitioning into.
And why you should care about this election and how it will affect you. We'll find out more after this.
Hi. Can I get the Now Bar, please?
No problem. $1.
Have a good one.
Got it.
Hi, can I get a Now Bar, please?
$1. Thanks.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Hey, let me get a Now Bar.
Sure. $1.
Appreciate you.
You got it.
How's it going? Can I get a Now Bar?
Hey, stop right there! Get down on the ground out of your car, right? Get down! Move over your head!
I grew up sitting on the pharmacy counter reading the Wall Street Journal. I didn't become a pharmacist. I married one.
It was a while before we could roll out the vaccines.
The person first on the wait list never got to take the vaccine. He wound up contracting COVID and passed away. It is frustrating when I see people spreading misinformation. We make sure that people have accurate information so they make their own decision. We share life together. We're all a family.
Do you want to meet a family with a transgender kid? Here we are. Max loves to do backflips. Max loves to play his ukulele. Max loves to just be a kid and just be himself. When I found out I was pregnant, all I really wanted was a happy, healthy, whole child. And that's what I got. I think it's really important for people to know that trans kids don't have a political agenda. They are just kids. Like any parent, we love our kids unconditionally, and we will never stop fighting for them. Stand with us. Protect our families.
And we're coming back to the Strip where we see thousands of tourists, but those tourists are not going to determine our local election. It's the locals out in Las Vegas. And that's why we have David Damore out here, and he's a professor and chair of the political science department here at UNLV. David, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And can you kind of explain why is this election just so important in Nevada?
I think there's a couple of things, right? Obviously, the top of the ticket, the U.S. Senate, has the potential to decide the partisan balance, and currently 50-50. You have 3 competitive House races in southern Nevada that it looks like the Republicans will probably gain the House. So the question is, will our representative be in the majority or the minority? And then you have the other constitutional offices on the ballot. And then if you go down a little bit farther, obviously you have state legislative campaigns, but this is also the first time we've had city council and mayoral elections during the general election here. So there's a lot to choose from, as well as all those judges.
And why do you say that the Republicans are kind of gonna run the House?
A couple of reasons. The momentum's behind them in the national environment. They did much better in redistricting. This is the first election after all the maps were redrawn for the 435 House seats. The Republicans controlled more of the state government. They were able to impose districts that are more favorable to them. And even in a state like Nevada, where the Democrats had control, they attempted to try to create 3 safer Democratic seats here. It may end up biting them if all those seats end up going red narrowly.
And let's kind of go back to more of a local level. How will kind of the governor races kind of impact Nevada? Well,
obviously you have an incumbent, Steve Sisolak, and then you have Joe Lombardo, the Clark County Sheriff here. Not a whole lot of experience outside of law enforcement there. Sisolak obviously is coming out of COVID and had to make a lot of difficult decisions with COVID, and then a lot of people are being hit hard by inflation, the lack of affordable housing, gas prices that people are dealing with every day. Democrats have had a tough time messaging on that. They've sort of pivoted more to the social issues, particularly abortion.
And because of all these impacts that the local election will have, do you think the voter turnout will be more in Nevada, or how do you think it'll be?
That's a really good question. Really hard to say. I mean, 2018 was a really, really high mark for a midterm election in Nevada. 2014 was a very low. I expect somewhere in between, but what makes it a little difficult to sort of handicap this year is the mail voting, right? Usually at the end of election night, we know how many votes are outstanding. We won't know that until Saturday because people can put them in the mail, drop them off. Mail ballots take a lot longer to be processed. So we may not, if it's as close as a lot of people think, we may not know until later in this week once those mail ballots have come in, the provisional ballots have been cast, ultimately who wins. That'll also give us a sense of a turnout. This is also the post sort of COVID population boom, right? A lot of people moved into Southern Nevada, particularly from Southern California, automatically registered to vote when they surrendered their licenses to the DMV. Question is, are those people going to vote? They got a ballot. We don't know if they're going to turn in. So far, at least in the early voting, the nonpartisans, about 30% of the electorate here, their turnout's much lower than the Democrats and Republicans.
And besides the candidates running on the ballot, what are kind of the ballot measures that it's kind of asking?
So there's 3 statewide ballot questions here, 2 that came from the legislature, questions 1 and 2. All 3 of them are constitutional amendments. Question 1 would essentially seek to expand the definition of rights beyond sex to include lots of different categories here. This is largely seen as sort of a preemptive measure if the Supreme Court, looking at what happened with Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court begins to strike down some of the legal standards for maintaining rights. The second one is a little bit of a cleanup bill. We've had this 2-tier minimum wage in Nevada. That is, if your employer offered you health insurance, they could pay you $1 less per hour. This would put everybody at the $12 minimum wage starting, I believe, in 2024 here. And then probably the most interesting one is question 3. This is coming in a citizen initiative. This will have to pass, if it passes this election cycle, have to pass again in 2024 to go into effect. But this would fundamentally change how we select candidates in Nevada. It would create a blanket primary where all the candidates and all the voters would select in the sort of primary phase. And then the top 5 vote getters would move on to the general election, and then there would be ranked choice voting.
Can you kind of explain for everyone what is ranked choice voting?
The idea of ranked choice voting is, right now you vote for one person or one candidate and that's all you get. Here you get to sort of state your sort of preferences. You rank the order in which you would like them, right? The idea is, and then if candidates who don't get sufficient level of support get eliminated, their second choices get redistributed, and we go through until someone attains a majority of support here. We've seen it implemented most recently in Alaska. The idea behind it is twofold, right? In Nevada, we have closed primaries, so the only primaries that nonpartisans get to vote in are essentially nonpartisan races, judicial races, some of the local government races, regent races, for example. They're excluded. The notion also is that the partisan primaries are what's driving a lot of our polarization because of the low turnout events. The party bases come out. They want more ideological candidates. So there's that part of it. The second part of it is, again, when we get to the general election, to give people more choice. The thinking is that this would lead to more moderation, among the candidates, right? If that is, knowing that they can't be totally so negative, knowing that may turn off a lot of voters. So you may not be the first choice, but you might be the second choice, and depending upon how the preferences all sort of distribute, you may end up winning. We saw that in Alaska.
Okay, thank you, David, so much for coming on and just sharing your knowledge about the election.
Thanks for having me.
And now that we know more about this election, how will the weather look like on Election Day? We'll check back with Dom after the break.
I felt accomplished after I got my diploma. Made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
If you're an ally of this community, speak out. There are more of us together than apart, and so they need you to stand with them.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Dear moms and dads, we know it's not always been easy. It's been a lot of hard work. What you have achieved here today is going to help us and our futures. It is why we are coming up on stage to collect your diplomas. Everything I do it for you. Mom, love you always. No, it's true. Everything I do it for
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
It's going to take more than just us. It's going to take the community, the world, to help us make a change.
And now, this is Studio G weather.
Now, this election day is looking a bit doomier and gloomier outside with a lot of overcast clouds and a huge chance of rain today, kind of putting a rain on the election day parade. And now we're going to take a look outside today. We have a 75% chance of rain throughout the day, plenty of outdoor polling locations. So if you're going to be voting today, make sure to bring a jacket or an umbrella. And looking at tonight, the rain looks like it should be clearing up, and we're going to be looking at overcast clouds overnight. Now we're going to look into our radar. This is a still image from a radar that we grabbed. There's a lot of precipitation around the Mount Charleston area. You see the blue in the top left corner. That's some snow up in the mountains in Mount Charleston. So that's going to be looking really good for the Mount Charleston Lodge, getting ski season started up. And Las Vegas does deal with the rain shadows. So with that 70% chance of rain comes with the possibility that we'll only see the overcast clouds today. So it might not affect your voting as much. And taking a look at your 7-day, we're going to be taking a huge dip in temperature next week with a low of 39. Mia, back to you.
And thank you, Dom, for that weather forecast. And there is a good chunk of Nevadans that won't have to worry about weather on their election day due to mail-in ballots. According to the Secretary of State, 618,000 Nevadans sent in early voting ballots, making up roughly 34% of Nevada's registered voters. These voters span a range of October 22nd to November 4th.
And if you're looking for rain this morning that didn't ultimately come, you also might have caught the Beaver blood moon last night. The moon entered the darkest part of the Earth's shadow, giving off a reddish tint to the moon. And since this is the first full moon of November, it gets the name Beaver, as this is a time of the year where beavers hide their food for winter. The next lunar eclipse, though, won't happen until March 13th, 2025.
The widening project will be in the medical district near the new UNLV School of Medicine building. The new project will widen Charleston at Rancho and will feature new storm drain facilities, a new water line, and new traffic lights. The project is scheduled to begin early next year.
And an iconic strip hotel, the Mirage, is expected to officially be taken over by the Hard Rock next month. It will begin its transition from owners MGM Resorts International to the Hard Rock International, and the property was bought by the Hard Rock last year for $1.08 billion. And as of right now, there has been no official word on how the transition will play out. The Mirage name is expected to be maintained at least for another 3 years via the agreement, and both MGM and Hard Rock presidents has stated the transition to be ensured with as little disruption as possible. And in sports, the Vegas Golden Knights over the weekend continued their winning ways north of the border. The Vegas Golden Knights, they took a Tour de Canada, stopping in Ottawa, taking down the Ottawa Senators 5-4, and then going over to Quebec. They beat the Montreal Canadiens in a pretty high-scoring affair. 6-4 was the final score there. Now the Vegas Golden Knights, they continue their long road trip tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and puck drop for that game comes at 4 p.m. And the Las Vegas Raiders, they lost big in Duval County on Sunday. They faced off against the Jaguars, and they put the Jags in an early hole off the back of Devontae Adams' 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the Silver and Black blew a 17-point lead in Jacksonville against the Jaguars, losing 27-20. After the game, quarterback Derek Carr spoke about the Raiders losing their third game after having that large lead.
You know, I think there's a lot I want to say, but if I'm honest, I don't need to say it here, and there's things that will be said. There are things that need to be addressed and all those things, but I think as a whole, the urgency part of it, that after 30 minutes of football, we have to learn that the game is not over.
And heading to the desert, Las Vegas native Noah Gragson, he ran for a championship in the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Saturday. The driver in the number 9 had 8 wins heading into the Final Four race at Phoenix, but came up just short, battling and finishing right behind Ty Gibbs, who went on to win the NASCAR Xfinity Series championship. Gragson now makes the move to the NASCAR Cup Series next season in 2023 for GMS Racing.
Good, Harkless. Physical. What a pass to Gilbert. Gilbert off the backboard. Rodriguez with the jam. Good, Harkless. Physical. What a pass to Gilbert. Gilbert off the backboard. Rodriguez with the jam. Good, Harkless. Physical. What a pass to Gilbert. Gilbert off the backboard. Rodriguez with the jam. Good, Harkless. Physical. What a pass.
And now last night, that was a huge win for UNLV. Keyshawn Gilbert himself, he threw the lob there. He led the way for the Runnin' Rebels with 13 points, supported by Eli Harkless with 11 points. The Runnin' Rebels, they took down Southern University by 10 points, 66-56. And right next door at Cox Pavilion, the Lady Rebels opened their season last night as well, their home opener against Pepperdine. And this time, Roman Owen was at the wheel. Essence Booker, she led the Lady Rebels with 18 points, and Justice Etheridge added 17, with 9 of those coming in the fourth quarter. The Lady Rebels ended up defeating the Waves big, 81-58.
And it's raining fire. Find out on what is going on after the break.
This is CJ, CEO of CJ's Produce. I'm the muscle, she's the brains.
It works.
My great-grandfather acquired Brantley Estates in the early 1950s. Mama Tia is my grandmother. She was actually the first in the family to get vaccinated. I was afraid. I came up with every excuse. My grandmother got her shot. I saw how strong she was. Why can't I? CJ needs his father to show him how to become a man. So I am fully vaccinated. I have somebody counting on me, so we made the leap.
I'm an actor in an ad that was given 12 seconds to remind you that if you're high, just don't drive. Because if you feel different, you drive different. It's illegal to drive high everywhere anyway.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Adding on to this eventful week, a horse in a rural area in Nevada County was hit with something that many are calling a meteorite. A house in rural Nevada, that was absolutely craziness there. A California resident, they ended up seeing a flaming basketball coming from the sky Friday evening that landed only 30 feet away from them. This mysterious space rock burned down his whole house, but he said he is just lucky to be alive. Officials are still investigating this incident. And in other news as well, Drake and 21 Savage finally dropped their collab album, Her Loss. And me personally, I think it's a pretty good album.
Yeah, I think compared to Drake's last album that he put out, this one's pretty good. I like it.
I was a big fan of Certified Lover Boy, though. I think that was a better album than Donda, because that was like a huge discussion last year in September is Certified Lover Boy better than Donda? I'm a Donda fan myself. It's kind of more artsy than normal albums, but Certified Lover Boy had more replayability, and I think this album has a lot of replayability too. And 21 Savage grew as a rapper as well.
That's great, Tom. I'm glad you really like Drake.
Oh, I'm a huge Drake fan. Word to the 6.
I hope he goes in concert probably soon, right?
He will be going on tour, actually, pretty soon.
Hopefully in Las Vegas. And I want to thank you guys again for joining us on Election Day. Make sure to vote. And this is Studio G. Stay tuned for more news.